Examiner. Alan Dershowitz says Robert Mueller gearing up to subpoena Trump. Lawyer Alan Dershowitz suspects special counsel Robert Mueller's team of federal prosecutors is preparing to subpoena the president. He says, I think they're gearing up for what will be a difficult legal battle. Dershowitz's comments follow a CNN report Monday in which Giuliani, Trump's lead personal attorney, said he hasn't heard from Mueller's office in nearly 3 weeks as the two sides negotiate terms for a possible presidential voluntary interview as part of the ongoing Russia probe. Dershowitz was asked today whether the radio silence could indicate Mueller's team may be considering another means of obtaining Trump's testimony. Dershowitz said, I suspect they've come to the same conclusion I came to several weeks ago, that the tactic of the Trump team, I have no inside information on this, but the tactic of the Trump team is to make the Mueller team an offer they can't accept so that in the end there will be no sit down and the Trump team can say, look, we made them an offer. It's their fault. They didn't accept it. I believe we've all been saying that because the bottom line is the president shouldn't accept a subpoena from Mueller, period. And he shouldn't sit down and talk with Mueller, period. He says, I suspect that Mueller is onto this tactic and is now looking forward to filing some kind of a legal action compelling the president to appear in front of a grand jury. You can't compel the president to sit down with the special counsel, but you can compel him to come in front of a grand jury. This is what Dershowitz says. Dershowitz added, Trump's outside legal counsel will contest any such move, and that ultimately the courts would decide whether the president will have to testify. Giuliani told CNN on Monday he figured Mueller's prosecutors were planning something, but said that could include them issuing a report without a Trump interview, subpoenaing the president to talk to them, or stay the course by negotiating the conditions for a pretrial sit-down. Now, since you and I, have been all over this, and we've called the balls and strikes on this from the first days, let me just say this. If Mueller causes a subpoena to be issued, that will have been approved by Rod Rosenstein in the Department of Justice. You understand? Mueller's not going to do this on his own. He's going to want the backing of the Department of Justice. Keep that in mind. That's number one. Number two, if this does occur, it is a frontal attack on our constitutional system. Because what Mueller will be trying to do is his form of what he's done to Mike Flynn and Manafort and the others, to try and force the president to get to accept his terms. And so he will be upending the Constitution, as will Mr. Rosenstein. Mr. Rosenstein, I know you're out there. You're hiding in the shadows. Mueller's doing your dirty work. I'm on to you, pal. Number three, the president will have no choice but to fight it. He's not fighting it as a citizen. He's not fighting it as an individual. He's fighting it to protect the office of the presidency and the Constitution. If you cannot indict a sitting president, then how can you force a sitting president in front of a federal grand jury, something that has never occurred in the history of the United States? And the purpose of trying to force the president to testify is to concoct a criminal violation. To concoct a criminal violation. Our courts are sprinkled with a bunch of Obama appointees, more than sprinkled. Laced with a bunch of Obama appointees. This is what makes it complicated. Constitution is not complicated, but it is the discernment of judges. It's unpredictable. Unless, of course, they're leftists, they're very predictable. So the president has to fight this. He has to stand up against a rogue prosecutor who's out of control, who does not have the same responsibilities as the president. The president's primary responsibility is to the Constitution. That is not Mr. Mueller's primary responsibility. He'll tell you it's to the rule of law, but that's not true. If he takes this step with Rosenstein's backing, They are attacking the United States Constitution. It's Trump who's on the right side of the Constitution. It's Trump's lawyers who are on the right side of the Constitution. And what is Mr. Mueller? Mr. Mueller is nothing more than an individual who works for the Justice Department. That's been their argument in these various federal courts to defend against violations of the Appointments Clause. No. He's an inferior employee, so they downplay him, you see. He's an inferior employee. He has to answer to the Deputy Attorney General of the United States. He didn't have to be nominated by the President or confirmed by the Senate. Okay, fine. Then you're saying he's an inferior employee. How can an inferior employee of the Department of the Justice force the President of the United States, who cannot be indicted while in office, to appear before a grand jury or to be questioned in person or any of these things? And the pretext is, well, we want to set him up, the President. We want to set him up. This guy Mueller is diabolical. Rosenstein's diabolical. But we'll stay on top of this, and I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.